With recent bank failures at an all-time high, it's probably a good time to really evaluate your financial accounts. Now, no matter where you are on the financial spectrum, there are 8 things that you can do right now to protect your money from bank failures and really create a more stable future when the economy takes a nosedive. We're going to look at this from the perspective of practical actions that you can take now. Now, the first 3 points that I'm going to outline really assume that you have money in the banks or maybe markets or retirement plans. But the last 4 points are really simple techniques that will work for anyone, regardless of your income, to make sure that you're positioning yourself in the best way possible to weather this coming storm. So let's start with the first point. Assess your assets. Between the deepening global recession, inflation, and bank failures, the age of progress and innovation is over for the near future. You really should take this time to do what savvy investors are probably doing, and that's to move to the most conservative investments that you can find. Now might be a good time to chat with your financial account manager if you have something like a 401k or a retirement account to gain their perspective and insight on this issue. Now, when it comes to larger accounts like your retirement plans, you may want to create an additional portfolio with different financial institutions. You can check the level of deposit insurance on your bank accounts. The FDIC insures you up to $250,000 per account. And if you have an account with a bank that exceeds that amount, now would be a good time to move the additional income to other banks that are FDIC insured. Recognize the warning signs of a bank's possible collapse wherever you bank. Bank failures, they typically result from the compounding effect of bad decisions over time. And there are clear warning signs at this moment. If there was a sudden run of depositors withdrawing funds, would you be able to transfer your money on time? Even if you are happy with your bank, setting up another bank account where you can transfer money over the internet is really like diversifying your portfolio. Troubling signs. Some bank failures are sudden and shocking, but some pretty clear signs of trouble precede most. There are signs you can look for before your bank fails. A big one is a sudden plummet in their stock, but by this time it may be too late and your assets could be frozen. Still, if you follow stocks at all, you can see short sell orders rise to extreme levels right before a bank is about to collapse. Investors will often short sell the stock to make a profit on the way down. And before it gets to that, you can look for other signs. If your bank delays releasing financial information, announces they're closing branches, or plans to lay off many people, they're trying to adjust their balance sheets and operating costs quickly. And to dive deep into the bank's health, you can actually visit the Federal Financial Institutions Examination Council website and examine Uniform Bank Performance Reports, or UBPRS. It's a complicated database, but you may want to do a deep dive if your assets are significant. Now, another troubling sign is depositors' migrations. On the FDIC's website, you can see a year-to-year comparison of total deposits for a bank. And if those drop by double-digit percentages, it may indicate your bank is struggling and folks with a lot of money are beginning to exit. And finally, if they start cutting services they once offered or suddenly hiking their fees or interest rates, it could mean they are struggling. And when you have a combination of one or more of these troubling signs, people might flee a bank and withdraw their money simply based on a fear of failure. And that can add pressure and accelerate a bank's demise. Consider a credit union. Credit unions follow a distinct business model that prioritizes their members' needs over generating profits for shareholders. And they are also carefully monitored by regulations and are insured. And while they aren't immune to playing correctly and fairly with your deposits and not overextending themselves, the higher regulations and lack of simply driving profits make them probably less likely to mishandle your money. But that's no guarantee. Credit unions, they also have a unique business model that sets them apart from the banks. They are not-for-profit institutions, which means they are owned and run by their members rather than shareholders. And this approach really allows credit unions to prioritize the needs of their members instead of generating profits for shareholders. And while there's no guarantee your money will be safe here compared to conventional banks, it is something worth researching more. Build your reserves. You can look at this from 2 perspectives, the practical and the financial. Let's start with the practical items like food. If you slowly build up a 3 months food reserve, 1 can, 1 bag of rice, or 1 sack of flour at a time, you can at least put in the reserves the crucial items that you would need to survive if the economy absolutely tanks. And I'll link to a video on how you can do that in the comments below, because I often hear from people who have made it through tough times by actually eating what they had in their pantry, things that they preserved and prepared for future emergencies. They actually fell on these during hard times. You can start by building what's there. You can start with one bag or a can at a time. And as for your finances, it's crucial to create a financial buffer so that if you're in a difficult financial position, for example, let's say a job loss, you do actually have a financial backup. Now, I realize that it's hard with all the constant financial pressures that we're facing at this time, but it is doable. When my wife and we first got married, we could barely pay the bills each month, but we put together a plan, and that's the important keyword here, plan, that enabled us to get out of debt and build a savings account. And what we did is we took 3 steps to put a barrier between us and being financially ruined. If you followed individuals like Dave Ramsey or other financial guru books, you're probably familiar with these 3 approaches. Dave Ramsey's approach is step 1, save up $1,000 into a savings account. Now, the reason behind this is it makes dealing with problems easier to handle when they come up if you at least have something in your savings. Step 2 was to pay off our credit card debt. And the approach that we used was a financial snowball. What we did is we started with our smallest debt, and then we paid it off as quickly as possible. Then once we paid that off, I rolled that money that I was paying into that first small debt into the next smallest debt. Now, I kept repeating this approach, and the amount of money that we could commit to the next debt, it kept growing, thus the snowball analogy. Now, the psychological boost that I got from making progress really encouraged me to move fast on the remaining debts. And it goes from just being numbers that you look at to really getting your emotions involved. And when you get your emotions involved and you experience gains, it's easy to continue motivating yourself. And once we actually got out of debt, we freed up our finances, we went to step 3, which was to save up for a 3-month savings account. And I know that may sound impossible to go through these 3 steps, but look, having a plan really made all the difference. Now, the book that we use is called Financial Peace. It's by Dave Ramsey. And again, whether it's Susie Orman, Dave Ramsey, I don't care really who it is, that the person's unimportant. The key is that you find a plan that you look at and say, hey, I can do that, and you work it. Offload Clutter. Have you ever watched one of those hoarding shows and wonder why people find so much value in all those little things? The truth is that people who have less tend to feel less burdened, and some even happier. If you're feeling uncertain about the future economic picture, I would encourage you to cash in that change that you've been saving and apply that found money to something super practical in your life. Do you have multiple cars, motorcycles, boats, mowers, or just whatever laying around, or just you know that, hey, I don't need this item? Why not offload them now while people are actually still in the market for them? When hard economic times come to us all, as the economy slides deeper into a recession or more banks fail, the dollar is going to lose value and fewer people will have the money to pay you what these things are worth in your eyes, or even anywhere near what you once paid for them. They're also going to be holding on to their money, so they're less likely to buy anything but essential items. I'll never forget personally 2009 when I bought my first home after the housing market collapsed. We didn't have any furniture, any appliances when we bought our first home, and we began to shop on Craigslist. It's, whatever site you use in your area to find deals or people are buying and selling. Craigslist was the one that we had in our area. And what we were able to do is we were able to find items at extremely low prices because people were trying to make money in the midst of a down market, and they couldn't really ask for much when selling. They were just trying to offload and get cash because they had other problems to deal with. So if you're gonna offload something, now would be a good time to do so. Learn to barter. Bartering can really be a helpful strategy in a financial crisis because it allows you to trade goods or services without using money. And this can help you meet your basic needs and conserve your cash reserves. It also enables you to build relationships with others in your community and create really a sense of mutual support. In bartering, it really frees you somewhat from the money loop of earning, spending, and taxation. Can you hem clothes, or can you fix an engine for someone in exchange for something or some services they can do for you? And I may not feel comfortable installing a light fixture on the exterior of my home, but an electrician could cost me several $100s if I were to call them to come out and to do this. But maybe my neighbor needs his lawn taken care of, and maybe I just saw him installing a light fixture on his house recently. If that's the case, it's time to make a deal. Are you a decent bread baker and your neighbor has a garden bulging with vegetables? Why not propose a trade? You are building a network by doing this. You're building a community and functioning in a cashless exchange where the dollar might be losing value anyways, I would encourage you to at least give it a try. Build your community. When the economy turns toward the worst, you would expect things to get more cutthroat and crime levels to rise, and they do, but something else also happens as well. People typically in these times come together and find strength in what they share. When my kids were smaller, we would meal share with another couple who had small kids. And in this way, we could give each other a day off once a week, but we would also buy in bulk and save, and we would just cook one big meal we could eat for a few days. It really enabled us to save money over time. And when someone I knew from an online group was in the path of one of these recent wildfires that impacted our area here locally, we allowed them to come and move their chickens into our backyard until the threat of fire passed through their area. It was just in an area north of us called Hemet, and they had a large group of chickens, and they got to hang out in our backyard in our cage for a while. And we didn't charge them anything, but we got a lot of extra eggs to eat during that time while they were in my coop. I've also been part of a buy in bulk group where we are able to save money by buying larger quantities than we would do if we were just on our own, and we can actually divide it up. It's kind of like Costco, but you can do it with friends when you buy things together in bulk from some of these stores that sell in large quantities. Have you ever considered buying part of a whole cow? You can cow share. A lot of people do this. It's ways for consumers to purchase meat directly from a farmer or rancher, and often at a lower cost than buying from a grocery store. And you have more control over the quality, and you know the source of their meat. And from work friends to online exchange groups to community pantries, churches, social groups, and schools or wherever you may be involved, you should view an economic downturn as really an opportunity to cultivate a strong community from these individuals that you build with. As divided as communities seem these days, there are more connected individuals than you might think if you start looking for them and making connections. The time to do that is now. Grow your own. I always find a way to work this point into my videos that getting that ability to grow on your own is so critical. Food is the most basic currency on this planet. It's always going to retain its value, and it's always going to be in demand. It's also one of the biggest expenses that we have now that we rely upon farmers, distributors, grocers, or eating out. An average household spends an average of $3,000 per year on dining out. And that was before prices started climbing. That's the low end. Those nights that you don't want to cook, or lunch breaks, quick meals between kids' rehearsals or sports events, and coffee stops, they begin to add up quickly. The average American family spends over $15,000 annually on groceries, factoring in this latest double-digit inflationary cycle. At the lowest, when combined, that's $18,000 per year. Reducing the amount you spend over the long haul can easily be achieved. Plus, it significantly decreases your dependency on corporate farms that may fail as banks go under and economies bottom out. It also reduces your dependency on grocery stores that governments may force to cap prices at some point, leading to them not profiting and eventually not supplying some foods. They are businesses after all, not charities. One home-built lettuce tower could keep you in more salad greens than you could possibly eat. Sprouts and microgreens can provide you with fantastic nutrition even while portion sizes on your plate are dropping because of the economy. And if you even have a few feet of land or a deck with sunlight, you could grow kale, potatoes, garlics, onions, or something else. If you have a backyard, why not plant a fruit or a nut tree? And while it may not yield anything for a few years, but given our current trajectory, how bad might it be in a few years? Even a 10 by 10 foot garden in your backyard could feed you when times are rough. Have you ever considered, and would your community allow you to raise chickens, rabbits, or quail? Some people with egg-producing hens recently found themselves with an income source when there was an egg shortage this year. And the food that you grow may not be enough to survive on, but it keeps your mind, your hands, and your attention occupied. You develop a new skill, you reduce your dependence on an unreliable system, and you might even end up with something that you can trade with. And at the very least, you will reclaim some of that $8,000 or more that you're currently paying someone else. And that's going to allow you to focus your assets on other necessary items. Now, I purposely in this video did not go into alternative investments, things like crypto, gold, real estate, or whatever it is that you feel would be a great investment. I don't get into that because that's not practical advice for most people. Instead, what I'll do is I'll link to 2 videos that we've recently done that will provide you with more actionable items, the things that you can do right now to protect yourself and really create a stronger financial foundation to make it through this recession. The first video is about building a 3-month food supply, and the other is about preparing for the recession that we're currently at the beginning of. I would encourage you to watch those videos or review this video again and determine what you can do today to secure a more stable future tomorrow. The key is build a plan. As always, stay safe out there.